Welcome to The Other Worlds, where we talk to authors of fantasy, supernatural, and paranormal stories. Let's open the portal and meet our guest. Hi, my name is Sandra Tan, and I am joined today by Nisha Sharma. Nisha is the author of several adult romance novels, including The Letters We Keep, and also has written several YA books. Her new YA novel, Illusions of Fire, is a paranormal fantasy romance with inspiration from Hindu mythology. Welcome to the Other Worlds, Nisha.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's lovely to get a chance to chat. I was approved for this arc back in January. So
Yeah,
it's been
it's
a
been out for a
long
while.
it's been a long time anticipating it coming out. So and for you this is kind of the book that didn't die because
Yeah.
you wrote you actually wrote an earlier draft of it quite a long time ago. So how does it feel to have it finally coming out?
Yeah, no, it's like a wonderful experience. I wrote the first draft back in like 2008, 2009, and then my agent and I went out with it in the early 2010s. And we got a lot of people who said that they loved the concept, but it just wasn't marketable because it has a complete South Asian cast. There is like the mythology is something that had never been done before at that point. It wasn't until like 2016 we started to see fantasy books with South Asian mythology, which people started to find more accessible. But at the time, publishing was very much against books that had this kind of backstory. So we shelved the project and I ended up selling another YA contemporary. And a few years ago, my agent and I were kind of talking about like, okay, next steps. I just finished a contract. We were ready to go out with more work. And essentially what we had decided was we would kind of like revisit this story because we felt like we were just starting to see paranormal come back like in mainstream the way that it used to be in 2010. So paranormal was starting to come back again, and from that point, my agent and I we decided to kind of like clean the manuscript up and then update it and then send it out. And Union Square picked it up right away. And my editor over at Union Square basically said, this is exactly what I was looking for. Like this has Buffy vibes, this has supernatural vibes. It has like all of those early millennial like reference like pop culture references that we loved. And at the same time it has this really robust, diverse backstory that kind of adds like this interesting dimension to it. And so I was like, yes, absolutely, like this just seems like the best partner for me. And we ended up going with Union Square.
Well, that's fantastic that it found a home so quickly when it went out this time and a supportive home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. It was kind of shocking, like 'cause I was braced for kind of the same ghosting that we were experiencing the first time around, but it was rapid fire. The response was rapid fire.
Yeah, it just goes to show how things can actually change in publishing cycles. Like things do progress.
Yeah,
And also even within genres, things come in and out of fashion, right? So
right, right,
yeah. So
for
it's
sure.
nice to see paranormal coming back a little bit more now. So I
Mhm.
actually was a little bit curious in terms of how you balanced dealing with the mythology in terms of making the book accessible for people who know very little about Hindu mythology and people who
Mm.
are well versed in it.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really too concerned about balancing the mythology. I just wrote the story the way that I thought I needed to tell it with sufficient information to be able to follow the character. Um, this book has been available for reviewers for a while now, and I've gotten feedback on both ends of the spectrum. Like, I have people who said that the mythology is too confusing, I can't follow it, I don't have the backstory, and I've also had people say this is written for people who don't understand the mythology. And so it's like you can't make anyone like 100% happy. So I think it's just a matter of like the reader and their interest in doing some of their own deep diving if they're open to kind of exploring the backstory if they don't know it, or if it's like readers who are familiar with the backstory and who just like are open to having some of the details like refreshed for them. I do have a reading guide that I put together on my website though. So it's called the Mythology Guide, and it's for people who feel like they need more context for some of the references. And I wrote the whole, it's like 10 really robust pages of, what are each of the different mythological references in the story. And I feel like I've given everyone, with that, I feel like I've given everyone as much as I possibly can in order to really be able to like enter this world.
Well, that's fantastic. It's great to have an extra resource for people to go to where they can learn more
Yeah,
so that that does a good job of balancing out, every reader's level because they can dive in more, or if they already know, then they don't need to. So that's fantastic.
right.
Yeah, I will say that I don't know an incredible amount about Hindu mythology. Um, but I did find this one. You have this reference in the book, and I might say this word wrong, so please correct me if I do. It says a Diane. I'm not sure if that's how to say
Oh,
it.
Diane, yeah.
Diane was a woman who had been wronged and murdered in life, who haunted trees and forests. They sucked the life force out of men by drinking their blood and walked on backward feet. And I was wondering, because you do mention that you took some poetic license, and I was wondering about this particular reference. I was curious about this one more than anything else, which I know might seem strange. But when I looked online, um, some of the information that I saw was saying that this was a witch, and it really wasn't emphasizing the woman being wronged or anything like that
Yeah.
in the information that I found. But this is very familiar to me because of one of my favorite movies is Boo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, and this is very more in line with that. So, how much poetic license did you take with this?
Not a lot. So witches, it depends on the region of India and South Asia. Like there are different regions in South Asia that also have different Hindu folklore that's kind of like been adopted into the culture. And this particular one is actually very straightforward from the region of India my family is from. So Diane's and so a witch for us is a churel. That is like the name of a witch. But a Diane is a woman who was sexually assaulted, who was basically tortured, murdered by a man who comes back as a vengeful spirit to murder the person who had wronged her in life, potentially destroy their entire lineage, and lives in caves, forests, trees, dense wooded areas. You can tell a Dayan by the way that they walk on backward feet. They usually have a long, like braid that can be used as a limb. And they are known to kind of like drink blood or like basically like suck the life force out of men, and that is how they kind of claim their vengeance. So the particular myth that I'm referring to in my region, that is the definition of a Dayan. A witch is considered a churel, which like in a lot of what from my region of India, is very similar to like the stories you'll see in modern like description of witches. Like they are like haggard looking, older, but they do have the ability to like glamour themselves. And they also are known for like potions and spells and things like that. Like that is more of the witch variety.
So there is that distinction there. And I'm curious because of the distinction that there is between these two beings in Hindu mythology. How does Hindu mythology, like, how do demons within that mythology differ from uh, Caucasian Christian demon perception? Like,
Yeah.
because her aunts, her Masi, I'm not sure I'm saying it.
Yeah. Yep.
Her aunts are demons, but they're
Right.
protectors.
Yeah. So demons, as like a being, stretch all the way back into early texts in Hinduism, and they are educated, intelligent beings who often like later stories about demons are like they can potentially cause strife. They are considered the anti-god. Um, but early texts basically describe them as like they can either be good or bad. They can fight on the side of good, but also fight on the side of evil. Um, and one of the most famous demons is considered to be like a blueprint for the modern day like morally gray character. He was like a protector, but also doing like bad things for the right reasons. And so these stories have really complicated our image of what demons technically are. But of course, like as history has progressed, they've been distilled to these shapeshifters who, in their regular like form, have like red skin and teeth that kind of stretch to their chin and have like almost like an animal style snout with multiple arms, sometimes described as having multiple heads. They have talons, and but they can shapeshift into human form. They they're cannibalistic, so they eat humans. They drink blood. Like that is like a descriptor that is now kind of attached to like the modern interpretation of a lot of these like folk tales and mythological beings. But like if you look at like the history of the myth, if you look at like the oral history, we're looking at very complicated, like some with very complex consciences, beings.
Okay, so there are some very key distinctions then between what I would
Right.
the demon. Yeah, so that's really interesting because like you could do I mean this kind of like leads into kind of an interesting study of Hindu mythology and
Hmm.
learning about the differences. And but I am curious about because you do mention there is an offhand reference in the book to British colonization and how the colonization of India um, affected people because it wiped out records and
Hmm.
and affected that history. So in some cases, there's difficulty tracing family history past a certain point.
Hmm.
Did it affect access to things like mythology? Like, were there stories that were lost?
I mean, I'm sure there were. I'm not like fully up to speed on the knowledge of like the impact on our archive, but like it is I know that like the intention for colonization was erasure. So like I'm confident. I just don't have the details on how it happened. I will say Mahabharata and the Ramayana and a lot of folk tales started off as oral myth. So there were oral stories that were passed down generation after generation after generation, which is why there's 1,000 variations on it. And it wasn't codified into like scripture until I think 400 BCE. So that's when we started to like write things down. And then of course colonization came in and some of those records had to change.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot about the history that you can dive into, but there's also some things about the characters that we should talk about. And and just for reasons, I was wondering if you could tell me what is your idea of a perfect first date?
It doesn't involve a beheading, that's for sure.
Really?
Yeah, I like dinner and a hike. I just prefer if a dinner and a hike didn't include the beheading at the end of it. There isn't like the beheading doesn't officially happen. They fight and then she's knocked out.
Yeah, fair, but there was still some intent there.
Yeah, there definitely is intent.
Um, so on that note, do you have any date horror stories that you'd like to share with us?
Oh my gosh, so many. So many. I once ghosted someone who was like a very kind person, but like just was a little too like scarily clingy in a way. He was a physician and I was just like, I can't. This is not working out. But 3 months later, I had this stomach bug and I got super dehydrated and I had to go to the hospital. And guess who was my doctor?
Oh no.
There was also someone who showed up in a cape once. Like just he came from a LARPing session and wore his cape through dinner.
Well, that's memorable, I suppose.
Yeah. Yep.
But
So yeah. Thankfully though, Layla and Karen's dating story improves vastly from their first meeting.
it really could only go up from there. I mean,
Yeah.
just minor details. So, which in a way though, it really did set them on. Like, did you think about it when you were marketing at all about they do kind of have an enemies to lovers arc?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about like how enemies to lo books that are labeled enemies to lovers these days aren't really enemies to lovers.
No, they
Like there's
both
no
are.
real hate behind it, right? And I was like, you have to really be someone's enemy for it to qualify as enemies to lovers. And if you're sent to kill this person and cut off their head and destroy their lives and potentially also hurt their family, like I feel like that qualifies as enemies. Like-
Yeah, I think so. Why not, buddies, So,
Right.
yeah, and uh, you also mention in the book, Karan. Am I saying it right? I'm close.
Darn, yeah.
Um,
Close.
uh, yeah. Um, I don't know why his name gives me.
I know. It's like in your head you say it one way, and then like when you like open your mouth to say it, it's like totally different. I totally understand.
Yeah. But in the book, you mention what terrifies him the most.
Mhm.
And so I was wondering what terrifies you the most.
I think like a lot of things terrify me. I'm generally like a very anxious person. So so I'm always like thinking about worst case scenarios, specifically something happening to my family. Like I think that would you see that a lot in a lot of my books, like family support, family obligation, family love, all of that is very, very prevalent in my stories. Like Layla in Illusions of Fire is very protective of her aunts. She keeps their secret as long as she possibly can from the person that she's falling in love with because she feels very loyal to those people.
Yeah, and she's also suffered a lot of loss as well, and I think
Yeah.
is probably a motivator for her protectiveness.
Mhm.
And would you say like one of the things that struck me about Layla is that although she's very frustrated in some respects about having a destiny, um,
Mhm.
and feeling like she doesn't have autonomy, at the same time, she's not a rebellious teen who's pushing the boundaries. And does that stem from the loss that she suffered?
Yeah, I mean, like in right in the first chapter, you get like a very clear understanding that like Layla feels very alone in the world, even though she does have these aunts who have taken her in to protect her. And even though she hates the destiny she's been given, she's concerned, like because of how she felt when she experienced loss, she's concerned about the emotions and the well-being of other people if she were to rebel and to kind of step out of line. Like, how would that affect them? She's constantly thinking about like I would hate for other people to experience the same sense of grief that I have experienced in my life. And even though I hate this destiny that has been like shoved down my throat since the moment I was born, I am not going to put other people in the position that I was forced to be in.
Yeah, one of the things that's really interesting about her as well is that I think a lot of times people think that, oh, wouldn't it be great if I had superpowers or if there was something special about me?
Mhm.
Because most people, I think, want to stand out or distinguish themselves in some way, right? And
Mhm.
she is a person who has this destiny, but she is very determined to incorporate anything normal into her life. Why
Mhm.
was it important for you to explore that aspect of her character in the story?
I mean, because she's 18. She's 18. She like there's like this desperate attempt at normalcy at 18, right? Like she's straddling two worlds, so she wants to glom onto as much as she possibly can. Like that feels safe and regular and normal to her. And so, that's what she does.
Yeah, it does make her very interesting, and also one of the things that I noted in the story was that at one point when when she's dealing with a lot of things, she tries to meditate. So I was wondering, do you meditate?
Yes, but I'm terrible at it. I'm actually better at journaling than meditating. I feel like meditating is too much of like it lacks the structure I need for to be able to fully relax. But journaling is great because it helps me channel a lot of the thoughts into a very like structured direction, and that helps me relax. It's um like it's like sand, right? It's like your thoughts are like sand. There's like all of these thoughts are like different grains. And for meditation, you are basically like sand is put in a pile on a table, and you kind of have to like put it in some sort of an order or structure it or like just come to terms with it. Journaling is like putting sand in an hourglass where you have the ability to control it in like a particular environment. And that is, to me, is more helpful than just trying to deal with it all just out in the open.
Yeah, that's a good comparison between the two in terms of what they're like. Yeah, and when I was reading about that in the book, I was actually kind of curious if you found that at all challenging to put into the book, because a lot of times as writers, we're encouraged to, reach for the action. The character should be doing something, and
Mhm.
meditation is really
slowing down. Yeah.
yeah, and having a still moment and also like needing to really, clear and focus your mind in a
Hmm.
different way. That doesn't it's it's not the same thing as creating a fire sword and having a fight in a clearing or
Hmm.
it's not those things. And so I was wondering if you found that at all challenging to incorporate in the story.
No, meditation is such a like important part of like Hindu philosophy, and so like it would be a disservice, I think, to the source material that I was working with if I didn't include it. Like that's it just felt very natural. I mean, so much of like some of the greatest like mythological stories and folk tales that have come out of like Hindu mythology and out of like folklore has included like moments of meditation and reflection.
That's great. I mean, it's because it is important to have things that are, culturally accurate and
Mhm.
also it distinguishes her character, you know, from other characters. I mean, even Karan, still
Mhm.
saying it wrong. I believe it was him who had that reflection of his father telling him, you don't lash out when you're angry. You don't channel anger into a physical form,
Mhm.
which a lot of people do. And so there's like that step back, take a breath, reflect, which is a very
Mhm.
measured and mature response, which I really loved about his character as well, because uh, I think if he wasn't a person who is given to reflection and and consideration, that things could have ended very differently at the beginning of the
Mhm.
book, right? You know,
Right.
he instead of just focusing on what he was told, he focused on what he was seeing in front of him, and he
Right.
added that to the equation and started reevaluating what he thought that he knew. So
Right.
yeah, so um, he's a great character, but I do think that one of the central themes in the book, and my apologies if you can hear my dogs barking.
No, no, you're good.
They're going crazy over here, and that's why I always wear headphones, like so that I'm not dealing with that. But one of the central themes in the book is feminine rage, and also parallel to that is autonomy. And I was wondering
Mhm.
why it was for you that it was so important to write about these particular themes.
Yeah, so the source material was a lot of the reason why. The Mahabharata, which is what a lot of like the inspiration came from, is a text that is in 18 volumes, and the central story is about five brothers who are married to the same woman. And Draupadi is um, like she's considered like the chief queen, the queen of queens, because although they're like met the five brothers, the five demigods who she's married to all had other wives, she's considered like the chief of the queens, right? And a lot of the battles that ensued in the story are because she was wronged and she had a thirst for vengeance. And it wasn't until she herself was able to get her vengeance that the war really came to an end in the source material. And because of that, I was thinking about like feminine rage and how her rage is what really fueled a lot of the motivation within the story. And like I was wondering like how would that rage appear today? And that kind of like concept went back and forth. And is that rage because of lack of autonomy? Or is that rage because of like something threatening autonomy? And so um, that's pretty much where it came from.
Yeah, the issue of autonomy is an interesting one because we are used to a lot of these stories about the chosen one.
Mhm.
They have this destiny and they must fulfill it. But we don't, we are, there, some stories have overlooked the grappling with that, the question of like, why do I have to do this? Why does it have to be me? Why can't it be somebody else? And you also flip that around and examine that a little bit from the other side of the coin in terms of the person who doesn't have a destiny and who desperately wants to have relevance.
Mhm.
Um, Given a
Mhm.
choice, which shoes would you rather be in? The one who's destined or the one who isn't?
I mean, I would not want to have destiny like knocking on my door. Like, it's a huge responsibility. It's a lot of pressure and it's also really scary. And I think that's something that when we see books that are like, oh, she's like 15 or 16 and has this huge destiny and she's or he's 12 and he has this huge destiny that's been like resting on his shoulders. And you're fighting adults, right? Like you're fighting adults or sometimes like mythological beings who have been around for like thousands of years. The question is like, that's traumatic. There's so much trauma associated with that. And so I would never want to be in those shoes. And that's actually one of the reasons why there are like scenes in the story where you see that like she's been traumatized and she's desperately trying to heal, like while at the same time continue to like pursue this destiny that she's been given.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to grapple with. And there definitely is
Yeah.
a, there's a reward, but there's also that cost. And you do a lovely job of balancing that out and showing both sides of that, I think,
Thank
in the
you.
story because um, it's something that we don't always look at, as
Mhm.
maybe as closely as it merits, because I think it would suck.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like on the one hand, if you have a destiny, then you don't have to make any, you can feel like you don't have to make any decisions for yourself, right?
Right.
And your course is set. I don't have to worry about what to major in college because I'm going to be this, right?
Right.
At the same time, you never you never get those moments of self-discovery.
Right.
Your identity was pre-established for you in so many respects. So
Right.
yeah, so it's an interesting thing that she grapples with in the story. Now, to wrap this up, I was curious. We talked a little bit about the fact that this is the book that didn't die, and you have set things up for the possibility of a sequel, and I was wondering whether that's happening or if you can say at this point.
I can't really say. And honestly, it's not because I'm like being coy or whatever. I honestly don't know. I don't know what's next. And it took a lot to write this book, like back in the day, and then to revise it. And the research is really intense. Like I'm working with like a lot of very old texts. So if I were to like finish the series the way that I've kind of originally envisioned it, which would be 5 books, um, I I want to take time with it.
That's completely fair, but 5 books, that would be fascinating. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, five is like the five brothers in the Mahabharata, right? So that's how I had originally envisioned it. And the first book was going to be the first brother, but it's Karan, who's not a descendant of a brother. It's Draupadi instead. So I'm like very interested to kind of also play with these characters to see like how this would change and like just morph into something new.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you never know. This could be really interesting to see where it goes if it does move forward. So, and on a different note, one of the things that is mentioned in your bio on your website is that one of the things that you do is you teach inclusivity. And I know that obviously reading a wide range of books from authors of all different cultures and races and backgrounds is a good way to promote inclusivity. But what else can we be doing in our own lives, would you say, to help promote inclusivity?
I mean, like definitely like economic support. So buying these books, or going to your local library and asking them to buy these books is super important. Talking about these books with as many people as possible. A lot of the times, marginalized stories do really well by word of mouth. So like having conversations with people about supporting and promoting these books is like a huge thing. If you are an ARC reader, reaching out to the person that you are getting ARCs from and saying, hey, like what are some of the marginalized stories that are on your roster? I would absolutely love to support. That is huge because a lot of the times the people on the inside make assumptions about what you might be interested in, and they don't necessarily talk about the marginalized stories that are very, very important to support. So if you actively go searching for them, or if you are on social media and you tag them, you can say, like, hey, what are some of the marginalized stories that are on your roster? Like, all of those things are very helpful.
That's great advice. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat
Sure.
with me about your book this morning. It was a treat to read. I'm very excited to see the final copy because you have a gorgeous cover.
Thank you. Yeah, the cover is amazing. I'm
Yeah.
very happy with it.
Yeah, did you get input on the cover or
Do you know what? They gave me the sketch for the first rendering of the cover, and it's almost exactly of what you see on the cover today. Like the very first attempt, they knocked it out of the park.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
It's wonderful when it happens that way.
I
And
know. It's
yeah,
very rare.
yeah. And also I think that with the color scheme, it also really complements your website.
Yeah, it does. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
I
I'm
love the
very
colors
excited.
on your website. So, well, thanks again for taking the time to
Thank
chat
you
with
so
me.
much.
And I wish you all the best with Illusions of Fire and its release. And I really, really hope that you get a phenomenal response to this book and the motivation to continue with the series.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a good one.